Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, with Pup and Teen and RDV from the Great Midwest. Tonight, we're going to be discussing a somewhat spoiler-free review of the recently released Wonder Woman 1984, the sequel to the 2017 movie that came out that I originally, when we reviewed it, said it's a pretty bad film, but if you like it and you think it's fun and you enjoy it, more power to you. That being said, I am outnumbered 2-1, and we're going to discuss some just topical elements about the film in general as we all watched it today or yesterday, recently when it came out on the 25th. I think it's Catwoman level of bad, and I am not joking. Sir, I take it very seriously how bad this film is in all sorts of ways, and I don't even know where to begin. But I'd like to say hello to Puppetine, and thank you for coming back on the show, sir. How are you?
Oh, I am good. I am happy to be here. Yep, I just saw a movie like a couple hours ago, and I am ripped and ready to go.
I see if people are watching the view of you that she's standing head and shoulders above you if they see the poster behind you. Yeah, and RDV from the Great Midwest is here too. And you know what, Puppetine, since this is a stream of consciousness review and we have no notes, let's start with your poster. I saw earlier today, as we were preparing for the show, somebody had tweeted out on my feed, now over 50 listeners to me, woo-woo, a picture of Gina Carano in a Wonder Woman outfit. And I got to start with the obvious. Let's just talk about the empty vessel that is Wonder Woman and the lady that plays her, okay? Very gorgeous woman, very good looking, natural beauty. Can't act, empty behind the eyes. I don't know how much of that's her. She's not been in a ton of stuff. Yes, she was Miss Israel. Yes, she's a model. The problem with this movie with her character is, and a lot of people say, oh, she's skinny. She needs to put on 10, 15 pounds. I would agree. She's not ugly. She's fit. She's good looking. She doesn't look like an athletic Amazon, which the movie starts with. And yes, the movie starts with a cute little girl. And we can argue about the fairness speech when Diana was young. But that was probably the funnest part of seeing Diana, because the rest of this film is just horrible. The way she's written and all that, I can't blame her for it. But just in terms of the physical presence of her, what do we think?
Well, you know, that mall scene was it felt entirely unnecessary. But I will say, she looked good. That was the best she's looked as Wonder Woman. The costume was so bright; it didn't look dull and faded, and I really liked that how she looked in that entire sequence.
All right, RDV, what about you? How do you feel she is in terms of just being an actress and how she fits for that? I've never heard that from you.
Well, I've said many times, if you watch the Fast and Furious movies, she was dull on it. The first movie, I was kind of upset that, yes. In fact, it's funny you bring up Gina Carano. I said Gina Carano would have had more chemistry with Henry Cavill being Superman, because the fact that Gina Carano was engaged to him.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they were dating and everything. He broke up. So, but Gina Carano as being Wonder Woman, it might be great. But Gina Carano, as one thing is said, because she works out constantly. She still trains, and like she used to, even though she's not fighting. She's got those huge shoulders, and that I think that would distract people from action, because Wonder Woman's supposed to be beautiful yet strong. And I understand people are like, yeah, because I was like, wow, yeah, because Gadot is like, yeah, I worked out, I trained for this. I'm like, no, you didn't.
No, she didn't.
No, you didn't at all. But it's kind of grown on me, because she's a wonderful, beautiful woman.
She is, and Puppetine said that too. So let me ask you this: I agree with all that, and I think you bring up an interesting point when you say that it would be distracting to have maybe a fit woman like Gina Carano doing it. But that's the whole point I'm trying to get to, which is confusing to me. And you guys know so much more about her and her roles that this is where I think your opinion's valid. Here is that I look at her and go, this whole movie was filmed with her posing and looking like a model, not looking like a powerful, attractive woman. Does that make sense?
You could have had, like I said, you look at Linda Carter. She poses all the time too. I mean, as far as that. Now Linda Carter though is, I guess, for people like that show, because I don't know if it's nostalgia or maybe because it doesn't have any things in there as far as SJWs or the political stuff they may not like. I don't know. I really haven't watched it, but I've seen like the clips of her in the costume. Yeah, she looked good in it. But she basically looked about the same weight and same build as Gal Gadot. Because Wonder Woman is tall, and
she's 5'9".
And the problem is that people have an idea like, well, this is what she's supposed to look like. If you look at over the years of comic books, she changes. When a new team takes over, they change the look. When she first started out, like in the 60s, and I had Brian should start earlier, I think that. But anyway, when she first started out, even the Golden Age books, you look at those, the bronze, she didn't look muscular. She looked like Gal Gadot. She's skinny. She looks sleek, but the story is basically what made it great. The stories, and we'll get to that, as far as this movie story wise. But yeah,
I don't disagree with you on that. She's a beautiful woman, but again, it looks like she's modeling the whole time, not acting. And again, that's not her fault. It's not her fault. She's beautiful. It's not her fault. She's framed that way.
What do you mean by not? Give me an example of not acting.
Okay, so I'll use Palpatine's description too when he said that the mall scene was completely unnecessary. We'll talk about a scene in there, and then we'll shift it into the overall '80s tone of the movie and whether or not we thought that was successful. Because obviously the title of the movie is Wonder Woman 1984. So to me, there was a scene in that gratuitously overly long and very boring mall scene, which is actually, I hate to say it, done better in Stranger Things. There's a scene where she's going through and she's using her little LED looking lasso thingy and all that, and it's just not a good scene. But there's a scene where one of the bad dudes at the very end, where she does the little wink at the little girl and she's holding the guy up by his one leg to show us how strong she is and just whatever. And of course we know he's on a wire. It just looks so completely unnatural. But every even part of the action scene, and of course it's like this in the rest of the movie, and of course in the first movie, the way I see it is she's always gliding with these little slow motion thingies and this and that, and the way she lands, it's like she's doing Roman Reigns or something like that with the Superman punch. It's not fighting style looking. I want long flowing things so I can see that little bit of hair flowing across the face, and maybe she might squint just a tiny bit because she's expressionless the entire time she's doing stuff, except for when she's winking at a little kid. It's just it's just a pose. She's turned the right way like a model does on the side with the hips shooting at you, holding that guy up while you're going, hey, they really were able to green screen out the string holding this guy up while you barely see a flex in her puny little arm.
I want to point out is that Warner Brothers with Wonder Woman, she's not as dark and action filled as it was. I think they're trying to make her more positive, basically what Superman should have been. Because you can watch, a lot of people are online are like, oh, we like the one from the animated DC movies where she's a badass and just punching people and just ripping. There's people are just, they want the violent version of her, and they're not really going for that. They have, even in her fight scenes, they tone it down because it's aimed more towards kids than it is towards, I guess, adults.
I think that's a legitimate point. I want to bring this around to the 80s because, Palpatine mentioned unnecessarily long mall scene there, which is, of course, if we throw the mall in here, it'd be like the 80s. I think this movie's biggest fail, because I think it's a horrible movie, start to finish, and we're trying to be spoiler free here and not really even dive into the political aspect of this movie that you could argue a lot of things about. We're really just trying to talk about the major film aspects for you people that haven't seen it yet. To me, when you talk about Wonder Woman, and if you want to make it for kids where adults can appeal to it, and you want to make it almost like G-rated RDV, I think that is a great thing. This movie completely fails when there's action scenes. It's by far the worst and completely laughable. So if they kept it more of like a romance drama with just a tiny little bit of action in there, even like the old Superman black and white TV show, I wouldn't have a problem with that, to be honest with you. And actually, as an adult, I think I would like it more because all this CGI stuff looks like nonsense. But bringing that around to Palpatine talking about the mall scene, I want to ask both of you guys this, but I'm going to ask Palpatine first. Palpatine, why did you think that the mall scene was unnecessary or boring or dull?
While it does connect to thinking about it now, you're going to have to forgive me sometimes. Head full of fluff, While it does lead to the artifacts being taken to the museum, how it was executed just felt like a commercial.
Well, let me ask you guys this. And this is, I'm being serious. When we think of the 1980s, other than the Xtreme movie show, where 1980s is what we base most of our movies and other TV stuff off of, and we branch out in the other fields, what pulp culture-wise immediately comes to mind in terms of topics?
Commando.
Well, that's a movie, so I would say movies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if you're gonna the 80s, the music, the mall.
There was no 80s music in here, was there?
No.
It was like opera or like, I mean, and I love an orchestra sound, but for God's sakes, there's the scene where Steven, you know, when spoiler alert, Steve's in this movie when they're walking, and yes, there was a members only jacket, gentlemen. We've been documenting that during our 80s reviews, especially on Kicking It when we've been doing the Chuck Norris movies. RDV will tell you that. We have in many members only sightings of films in the 80s. But there's a scene where they're breakdancing and she's explaining to him, oh, this is modern art, this is that. They're trying to be funny and it's not. But he sees the guys breakdancing or whatever like that, and you don't even hear like a beat or anything. They could have thrown in Run DMC or something, or LL Cool J before he got super big. He was popular back then. Nothing. I thought, okay, you can do the girls just want to have fun thing or something. I was expecting some sort of dumb, stupid 80s montage, which you saw all the time in 80s films and TV shows. You didn't get it in here. It was like opera. What the hell are they trying to do with it? Trying to set this in the 80s and not have 80s music, gentlemen? So that was my whole take, Puppington. When you said it was unnecessary, I thought, yeah, they threw an arcade in there with only like 3 or 4 or 5, 6 games in there when they would have twice as many and be completely dark. And yeah, they threw the Walden books in there, but it just didn't look or feel like an 80s film. I know that because I grew up in the 80s. You guys did not. But what did you think about the 80s perspective on this film?
I don't know what you're talking about. I grew up in the 80s. But anyway, what was I saying? No, you're absolutely right. This could have been pretty much placed today and it would have worked out fine. Yeah,
and that's a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, and that is kind of a problem when you sell it as welcome to 1984. But it doesn't take away from the movie for me.
Okay. Even though it doesn't succeed or execute, to use your words, and what it's trying to do.
I mean, but it's primarily trying to tell a story. So, but we'll get to that.
So again, trying to stay a little bit spoiler free with it too. It is a long movie. It's well over 2 hours. I think you could easily cut 30, 40 minutes out of this, and you might make it a tighter film. Let's talk about, was it Christina Wigg? Is that her name? Comedian, allegedly. I actually didn't mind. Okay, Miss Wigg. I actually didn't mind her in this film. I really didn't like her character. I really didn't understand her character, so I want you guys to talk about the ear from her because I know you guys know more about it. But I will say this leading into it before I turn it over. To think that Diana sitting there by herself for 60, 70 years, however long it's been since Steve allegedly passed away in the first movie, hasn't found another dude to shack up with or occasionally go with for dinner and drinks in one of the most cosmopolitan cities in the world, technically, DC, where she's working, or wherever she's been for that time, is laughable. And she seems very standoffish. And I'm not going to go into the whole feminism, anti-Trump thing that a lot of people see in this film. I will mention that only superficially when we get to the White House part. But to me, it's just laughable that, when she feels that people don't pay attention to her, because a woman like that would be fending guys off left, right, times 100. And especially in the 80s, oh my God, she couldn't get through the mall without 5 or 6 guys talking to her all the damn time. But maybe to her defense, she did a good job of giving off a standoffish vibe due to her bad acting, because that's how it felt like. But Mrs. Wigg's character, I thought once she, how do I say this, trying to be spoiler free, once she started to metamorphosize, I actually thought she did a good job of giving off that awkwardy, kind of shy, nobody pays attention to me vibe. And she's not ugly. She doesn't have a bad body either. So again, in the 80s, it's not that she would be ignored. And I just found it very interesting that they really wanted to point out these two girls were doing girl power, sipping their white wine Chardonnay somewhere and talking about how guys don't look at them and stuff like that. It's just completely laughable. But talk about Miss Wigg's character and whether or not you feel it was needed, because to me, one of the other problems with this movie is there's not really one bad guy. There's like 2 or 3, or I don't know. It's not very clear there's one definitive. What did you guys make of that?
Well, she is one of the bad guys, but everybody knew that because that's in the trailer, pretty much. I liked her character, honestly. I enjoyed the journey that it took us, because whenever it started, this is a long movie, but whenever it started, I was wondering, how will they turn her into Cheetah? She doesn't seem like a bad guy at all.
Right.
But you're right. And the comments are saying to go ahead and spoil her away. So I'm thinking that we should.
Well, when you're done, I have a rebuttal to what you're talking about.
Well, it's not a rebuttal.
No, I have one.
I have the character.
No, when you're done, I have one to you.
Yep.
Okay. I was saying, basically, she wishes to be like Diana because she sees Diana as strong, powerful, sexy,
jealous.
and cool.
But of course,
Yeah, she's jealous of her.
That's a human thing. Sure.
Yeah. But as she gets her wish, later on in the movie, Wonder Woman says, "Where's your love? Where's your joy? Where'd all that go?" It overtook her. The power that she wished for took her humanity, which was perfect, honestly.
RDV?
Yeah, Kristen Wiig. Basically, if you're not a fan of Kristen Wiig, this is what makes her look hot. If you didn't know she's hot,
oh yeah,
they really promoted in this movie with the 80s spandex. Ooh. Yeah. Begin with, she already was. Yeah, she looked up to Diana. She wasn't jealous. She just her character. She was shy, weak, and Diana saved her and stuff like that. And she saw how people, and then she says on their coffee dates, like, "What, you're not dating?" And I can understand her why she's not dating, because some women, when they're husbands, they never remarry again. Not everyone's the same, So your comment, Rob, about her not dating ever since World War I, who knows? Maybe she has, and like you said, or maybe she just doesn't want to. They're not really doing the whole romance aspect of this, because they put it in other, even in the comics and even in the cartoons, they hinted that her and Batman had a thing going, but Batman called it off because Batman comes first.
He's Batman.
Well, that's an interesting thought, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, everyone always assumes, plus, I don't want to really go into the whole thing, as far as, being a widow and stuff there. But, yes, as far as Kristen Wiig, her character, brilliant. For someone who usually does the comedic roles, to do a drama like this, and slash action. I love the fact, like Pixels as Mr. Palpatine says, she lost her humanity. But even before that, though, she was already kind of bitter in a little bit too, because she hated herself. So
I would say a woman in the 80s, even Wig's character in here, the way she looked, before she turned, still going to get a ton of attention, especially in DC. For God's sakes, you worked at the Smithsonian. Oh, really? What do you do? Oh, you like play with things? Okay, that's kind of cool. Well, let's I mean, come on. The only thing missing in this movie was cocaine, but if they wanted to take this into an R-rated direction, the way they meet, where she accidentally drops her papers on the ground while the Asian popped collar guy, laughs at her and goes, "Why, that would never happen. Those guys have been fighting to pick it up and go, hey, how's it going?" So that's just not realistic at all. But the point is, Diane comes in there, and that's how they meet. It's my lesbian radar was going off. What about you guys?
You gotta realize, though, that there was 2 wishes she made. Her wish, not she didn't really want to be like Diana, but she also wanted to be popular. She said, "I want to be loved and be popular." No, sexy and all that stuff. That's why everyone was all over. Even the women were saying, "Ooh, what you put on the dress? Ooh, you look amazing. You look sexy in that." So that's why guys are falling over here. That's why if you miss that part, then you're like, "What the hell's going on?"
Yeah.
But like I said, like Kristen Wiig, her character in this, even up to the point where where she gets the whole cheetah thing. I like the fact that her character was, it felt like a villain. Now, as far as I guess if we're doing spoilers.
Yeah, go at it.
Diana loses her power. They find out that she's losing her powers because she traded that was taken away from her. So her boyfriend, or Steve, could come back.
Well, let's back up a little bit before we get to that. Let's talk about how they get there and how that's a thing.
Well, the whole the Maxwell Lord thing, though. Like I said, I like this character. I thought it was great. He originally was a guy who made a mistake, and that he was doing anything he can, like a pathical Elijah. They do it. They keep lying. Anything they can. He's trying to get his butt out. Because he embezzled that guy's money pretty much. And he's trying to make up. So of course, when he hears about the wishing stone, and the thing is that we find out that he actually has been looking for it. So I thought that was kind of cool. Especially,
I think that's a poor choice, though. If you got a guy that's the real telemarketing thing took off more like in the 90s, honestly, with all the real estate stuff. It wasn't that big
Rob,
in the 80s.
You're looking at someone who's going for logic and stuff with Hollywood. Hollywood has their own history.
I understand that.
So,
and the point is why I agree. I think Pedro's character, he chewed the scenery, a little bit, and I think he seemed really comfortable and enjoyed it. The fact that he did made everybody else, for the most part, look pretty bad. That's how comfortable he seemed with it. And so I went, oh, here's a guy that kind of stood out. But them trying to say that, he was really built not on Trump, but built off of the Michael Douglas character from Wall Street, Gordon Gekko, who was based off of Pat Riley, the head coach of later the Knicks, but of the Lakers at that time, himself a Laker way back in the day with Wilt Chamberlain. They failed on that. And if they tried to make him look like Trump, they failed like that. His hair was Trumpy. His suits were Wall Street-ish and not very good, certainly not 80s style. That being said, just the way he talked and all that, that's fine, but that was not a hardcore I'm going to sell you sort of something on TV sort of character. I mean, I think he was fine. The way it's written was pretty poor is what I'm saying.
It was written like a TV show, as far as a cheesy 80s TV show. That's what it reminded me of.
Bankman, I need to thank you, because that is exactly the vibe they're going for. This feels, the whole story and everything feels like something that would be on the classic Wonder Woman 70s TV show. Absolutely. Yeah. It's very lighthearted in a way.
Well, I really about that. I think they probably should have went full cheese instead of trying to do several things here, because really what it comes down to, the whole reason all this kind of stuff happens in this movie is somehow, some way, and maybe it's important to some people, it's certainly not to me, there's this chunky looking crystal rock, which looks like a small black dildo, if you really think about it, that the white women find that grants them all their wishes. That's what it is. It's the monkey's paw. The first guy gets the coffee. And then, of course, the other wishes happen. And then we go, oh, that's what's going on. And then, of course, Pedro gets involved with it and all that, too. So what do you guys think about this little thingamajiggy that is really kind of silly?
I thought it was actually kind of interesting that, it is a plot device. Pedro Scarcel, because they don't want to carry that object around with him, he wishes to become the thing so he can grant wishes. Being a smart guy, he probably figured, hey, it's easier to do this. And then I can, like I said, I can take back whatever I want in exchange, because he figured out how it takes away stuff from you. So I wonder, when he wished to become the wishing thing, what did it take from him? It felt like it took his humanity almost a little bit. We're not sure what it really, because no matter who wishes, it takes something from them. Did it take something from him? Because the way he started acting.
Well, no. How it started, whenever he became the stone, it was taken away from his life force. Pretty much.
I guess. Yeah.
He was slowly deteriorating.
Yeah.
But eventually he learned how to control the fate of everything. So, okay, yeah, I grant you your wish, but I'm gonna do this.
You know what it reminds you of? That would have been better if they, instead of doing Maxwell Lord, doing a Felix Faust, the actual DC ancient wizard, something like that.
Yeah, normally I would rail on what a stupid, dumb plot device, because it's not cool in itself, and they don't really, I think, get into the history of this thing too much. They just let it be the thing to allow this stuff to happen. But I want to bring up something that, if you put even 2 minutes worth of thought into it, or 2 seconds, I think it's the creepiest thing about this whole show, and that's the romance with her and Steve. Now, Chris Pine is an actor I think we all kind of like, at least I do. He seems to be the kind of guy that does really good stuff and is not irritating like a lot of actors can be. I don't know if he's leading man material, but on a side note, before I jump into the big one here, she's 5'9", 5'10", allegedly. So let's say she's 5'8", 5'9", barefoot. A lot of scenes with Diana were filmed where men were really shorter and the women were the same level. Just saying, go look at that in the first hour or so. That was very obvious to me, especially with Chris Pine early on. And Chris Pine, I looked him up. He's 5'10", so average, maybe slightly above average for a human male. So he just looked shorter and smaller to her. And I don't know if that was intentional, but what I was going to say about the whole thing is of course, she wishes for Steve to come back. So there's this scene where, this guy follows her at this event and then hands her the watch and says the romantic thing, and all of a sudden kind of like turns into him. And so they talk, they make sweet, sweet love or whatever. And of course, it's not like a deep fake porn, so we're not going to see anything. But the obvious question is okay, we get Steve's going to come back in this film. What's going to happen to him? Whether you're mad if that cheapens the way he went out in the first film, I get all that. But in terms of this film, even with the power of the device, of the dildo, it's like, what happened to the guy that he's possessing his body? It's freaking me out because they're walking around, they're talking, and what's freaking me out is not that we don't know what happened to this guy, and all that. It's the fact that they act like it's no big deal. They go to the guy's apartment, they do this, they do that, they're walking around, they don't give like 2 seconds worth of thought. And I'm like, and these are supposed to be the people we're rooting for? It was just sort of creepy to me from the adult perspective. What did you guys think?
I can understand as far as that, them not giving 2 thoughts. I thought that was her showing that she's basically just she's being selfish, choosing herself over what should have been right. Because, but as far as what happened to that guy, I feel like we saw how the picture changed. So it means they wrote it that he never existed in that form. So the
mirror scene.
Well, I know, but
he had the body.
Yes, it showed that. Yeah. Well, no, what it was, it basically gave him a new life. His past with her was pretty much like not erased to everybody else, probably, maybe, I don't know. To her, because she can see it through true love. She can see him, that's why she's able to see him the way, obviously, we don't know, maybe, because she can see his personality traits, so she can remember his face. Because Chris Pine's in this movie, so we have to see his face. That's why we're seeing the mirror image like that. But
we need to address that scene because she says an important line there. Because he's talking about this is my face now, and she says, "Well, all I see is you." Yeah. That's exactly it.
But
once he says the line, and she realizes that's just Steve to her now. And it was selfish. You're absolutely right.
Well, yeah, like I said,
that's a huge part of the movie.
Like I said, I think the guy himself never existed. Steve is always existed in that body, but him, those are only 2 that know that the magic was involved. It wouldn't make sense for him to not know that he's in a different body. As far as that guy, maybe he was written out of existence. We don't know. Maybe they exchanged places. Maybe that guy went up to wherever Steve was. But like I said, it was, and that's, as I said, that's the reason they had it. The reason they even did that because they realized they basically screwed up by killing him off in the first movie because he's not freaking Captain Rogers. He can't survive in a frozen blood ice or survive an explosion. He's just a normal human being. So them killing him off in World War One, which I still think is stupid they did World War One instead of doing World War Two or even in Vietnam or something. Why so freaking far back? Because I don't understand they want to show. Yeah, make her seem older, but to bring him back in only spirit form, that's and then it shows that the stone, which they do find on land because she can read land, where she finds out later from this it's a god of chaos, pretty much. I believe that's what he's doing.
We also need to talk about. You remind me the stone. Rob, you said that the stone didn't get a lot of history or anything. It was just the item. That's not true. They go to visit a guy specifically to learn more about the stone that they had.
Yes, guys, his grandfather was a Mayan.
I get that there was a backstory to it, but it just was convenient how all of a sudden there's a rock and then the guy's getting free coffee and, there's all this other stuff going on. I went, really? I mean, I don't know the history from comic books and graphic novels. I know you guys are very familiar with that stuff. So I didn't know if that was a pertinent thing or a made up thing, but it just seems silly. Really, a rock.
I don't know either. I don't read the Wonder Woman books, but I mean, from what I can gather, just comic tropes and stuff like that. It makes sense that, wherever this thing goes, civilizations are basically wiped off.
Well, if they had kept it G-rated, which up to this point it seemed like it was kind of silly, and then if you kind of ignored the whole adult conversation we just had about Steve and coming back to life and all that, I thought the romantic angle could have been a lot interesting if they had left Chris Pine out of it, and they could just show her, having a relationship with a guy then at that time at the 80s that doesn't know she's like all that and is a decent guy, and maybe it's almost like the reverse Superman thing or some other thing where you just see the struggle she has trying to keep it private because that's kind of the thing, that's her loneliness. But this one true love and seeing true kind of stuff is just so 8-year-old girlish. It's just
it's written for girls, bro. It's not written for you.
It doesn't matter who it's girlish. It doesn't matter. It's not romance, is it? It's not.
Romance? Yes.
It's not. Nah. She's with a ghost. That's not romantic. If I want to see that,
did you ever? Exactly, which is the same thing. Except that perpetuation is not possessing a body.
I know.
No, but
not quite actually. But let's.
I would have been better if they would have left the actual romance and they left Steve out of the movie. Probably, if you think about it.
I agree.
But having her dating someone else, I would have hated that even more. She, like I said. I mean,
I think it would have been a very strong message for the female perspective to see how a woman who's been around 70, 80 years, whatever her age is, to see how a woman that's got that much life years and experience, who, of course, let's not forget, it's not human, how she's choosing to deal with, dealing with human men that are.
You know who the next guy she would have chose? Batfleck. That's the next guy if Steve wasn't there.
Anyway, all right. So this movie plods along. Real quick, I don't think it takes a lot to really go through this next part as we get towards the second half end of the movie. What did you guys think of the invisible plane bit?
Better than the actual Linda Carter one.
It was fun.
I like how she uses her own powers to concentrate and she's able to make stuff invisible. Where was it ever explained in the series, Rob, or Palpatine? Did you guys watch the original Linda Carter? They did just
I don't think so.
But I like
the actual plane itself was invisible, that only she could pilot or something. I may be wrong on that.
And I don't know if it was Amazonian tech, still tech. I don't know. But I like in this one they just stole it.
Well, because she says, "My father hid." I cannot pronounce this island's name. Well,
Themyscira.
Themyscira. Absolutely, that's it. She says, "My father hid Themyscira, so I've been trying to learn to hide things from the world too." And Chris Pine says, "Oh, you've done it before?" And she said, "Once to a coffee cup, and then I lost it." I thought that was funny. That entire exchange.
Her father is in this. I know in the comics her father is Zeus, isn't it, right?
Yeah, it's
but
pretty much the same in the last movie.
Yeah,
Ares tells her. But
I thought Zeus was not allowed on the island. Like they left. I thought they were anti-male. That's why I was wondering. I wondered why would Zeus hide it for them? I don't know. I'll have to go back and watch it and see exactly what it is, because that threw me off too. Well, they said like my father did this. I'm like, you actually knew your father? You actually know him, or just tales you heard? Because I didn't see your father in your childhood when you were running around with all the women.
Just like to spread it around. Let's be honest. And the whole thing with gods is they act like children. That's why they were titans and all that.
Don't let that make grace.
I don't know how that affects Wonder Woman.
I mean,
let's bring it back towards the end a little bit, because the one last thing to really talk about is, and I hate to call it a plot because it's just really bad to me, and I don't really want to get horribly political in there. Whether or not you think it's supposed to be anti-Trump or the Trump villain, no matter what kind of PR they're doing about it now, they obviously put in the White House, and they put in things that I think are very supposedly climate messaging in today's world, and that's anti-oil, nuclear war, all this other kind of stuff that they were trying to convince young people seeing the film today that's what was going on in the 80s. In the 80s, we were just building up a lot of arms. Everybody knew that. And I got to say, the worst character in this film was the president, who was supposed to be Ronald Reagan. Looked nothing like him. Didn't talk like him at all. I think I saw Jelly Beans, which was Ronald Reagan's thing on there.
I forgot about that.
I'm simply saying that it was so obvious. And you got to understand that in 84, Reagan had the absolute biggest crushing, I think it was Mondale of that time, of any president ever. That's how much people loved him. By 84, 85, you could not stop America. You could not stop the optimism that was in there. And I think this movie, part of the 80s thing, part of the political thing, the oil thing, which is not a thing, that was ridiculous, was that it made it seem like America was greedy, and everyone always wants to talk about the excess consumerism in the 80s. No, people worked hard. They had money. They went out and spent it. Interest rates finally were somewhat reasonable after the late 70s, early 80s, getting off the gold standard. People went out and did stuff, and they had a good time. And I think that was missing this film. And I think they were trying to make it feel like it was a film about 2020, as far as the idea of like, oh my God, there's so many world crises going on, this and that. And again, not to be too political, but I'm going, if anything about this movie that you're going to get right, even though I'm lambasting you for not having any 80s music in it at all, and the crappy mall scene and anything else, of course, the Members Only jacket was good, but to screw up Ronald Reagan that much was a complete joke. And I understand that if you're writing Ready Player One and you didn't live through the 80s, or you're like the Duffer Brothers or Stranger Things, I think we're not around in the 80s, or really too young to remember it, that you just slap a bunch of shit on some pages and act like it's a real thing, and it's not. They didn't use the 80s to advance whatever the story was supposed to be. And so they failed in their execution of that and about everything else that they've tried doing, in my opinion. And before we get to the final part and talk about the action in general, I don't know if you guys care or want to talk about it, but I just thought the whole Reagan thing in the White House was the biggest joke of the movie. And the fact that they got him so wrong had to have been intentional. What do you guys think about that?
As far as intentional, maybe. That's speculating. I mean, as far as that's, it's no hidden thing, or hidden logic that Hollywood hates Trump and they hated Reagan. They hate all that stuff. They're anti all that stuff. But as far as when I was watching it, I forgot it was supposed to be Reagan because I
didn't look like him at all.
no, and I was like, and I don't think, like, if they did CG his face on there, they don't have the rights to do it, even though they have a bigger budget than they did last time, than the first one. But yeah, I guess like it could have been anybody. I mean, as far as if they're trying to go realistically, what because if it's comic books can create their own history. They don't have to go by if this is supposed to be Reagan. It could have been any president in there. They can make up their own presidents. That's the joy about creating stuff. It's they can create whatever they want to do. You may not like what they do, or you may like what they do. That's the joy of creating things that are not. It's not canon. It's superheroes, bro. It's not supposed to be make believe. But I understand you want to have some stuff believable and logic to it, because that's just the way we are. We're made. We want to understand this is stupid with the Reagan thing. Because I agree. I don't know if they're trying to make fun of Reagan, or if it wasn't supposed to be Reagan at all, because they didn't even say what the president's name was in this.
That's one of the things about the 80s is that Reagan was super popular. And whether, as Strom was saying in chat, you think he was a complete tool or not, I'll leave that up for you guys to decide. Again, we're trying to keep the politics part here. We're trying to talk about it from the 80s lens. Yeah. Reagan was huge and massive and all over the news everywhere. I mean, that's just the thing. I mean, he was as popular as Trump, if not more, at that time in the 80s relative. You know, you talk about Trump, whether you like him or not, or Orange Man bad, the thousands he gets when he would go out on the speech, you know, and all that. I haven't seen that since Reagan, honestly. I mean, Reagan was a really good speaker and really had an appeal that, say, Trump doesn't. Trump's got the New York attitude. Reagan's got a more polished presentation. And the fact that they just totally glossed over that, I thought that has to be intentional. I mean, not that you're trying to be completely historically accurate, for God's sake. You know, I just
I think if they wanted to try and insult Reagan, they would have done more. I think they just didn't really care.
Like I said, I've actually watched the animated DC movies. They have it's called the Dark Knight Returns with Frank Miller's Batman, where they actually they drew the president. It takes place in the Cold War. The president was Reagan. You know, they didn't announce him as Reagan. They just called the president. He was drawn as it. They even had a voice actor trying to sound like Reagan, but they made him seem like he was just a war hawk and evil bastard. You know, they totally just ruined it. It's like, what the heck? This isn't Reagan at all. He's like, this is like, holy crap. Like he says, but in this one, I was kind of glad they didn't do it. Yeah, they just kind of glossed over it. It was like a real quick thing. I mean, this was kind of like a patsy president. I mean, like I said, if it would have took place during the 90s, you know, and they did that, you know, I think some people would be upset, like, well, Clinton wasn't like that whatsoever. I'm like, I don't care if they did it or not. It's just the fact that he wasn't, the actor wasn't meant to look or be Reagan. That's my point. At least I feel that way. Because
you may be right on that. I don't know. I just thought it was glaringly obvious, but lived through the 80s.
You do have valid points, though, as far as the 80s music. I mean, freaking Captain Marvel movie, Brie Larson had like actual like good music in it, but as far as the story was weak. Where I think this movie would have been helped out a whole much better if they would have actually had a good 80s soundtrack. And what's bigger now is the 80s soundtrack, is music that's coming back. There's people still love it.
Yep.
Stranger Things features it too, and Stranger Things also, yeah. So I think they would have, in this movie they basically spent most of their money, even though they had, because the original movie had like what 140 to 150 $1 million budget, where this one has like 200. They said. So as far as I think they spent it all on the CG, and maybe as far as like, well, I guess
I don't see where they spend it if they did.
Well, you're gonna
swinging around like Spider-Man. It was that was a little weird
on the lightning bolts. Well, she did in the first movie too. Remember?
No, I didn't. I'm not talking about the lightning bolts. I'm talking about she was just using her lasso left and right to swing around like.
All right, guys, let's round up the finish line here. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, as it were, what you guys already kind of started to talking about. To me, it was atrocious CGI, and whether you think it's believable or like me, she's modeling instead of acting. No matter what you think of the realism and all that kind of stuff, what did you guys overall think about it? I thought it was horrible looking. If they spent that much money on it, they should have gotten rid of all of it, not had any of it, had an 80s soundtrack, and it would have been 10 times better. Go.
Well, as far as budget, I don't know if they spent it all on CG or as far as graphics. As far as we don't know with COVID, was this done before COVID?
The action scenes in general, let's lump all that together with CGI. Did you like it or not?
I liked it as far as that. You know, it's when she's got the powers. People are like, oh no, she's doing the treadmill run in front of a green screen. You know, it's like, I enjoy that when she's running at the trucks and she's trying to get to Maxwell Lord and she's in the Middle East. Some people they said that was racist. Like, oh, they live in the Middle East over there. I'm like, dude, if you watched any 80s movies, don't watch Iron Eagle. If you think freaking Wonder Woman was racist, having the guy wanting to take back his land, his nature, you know, from all people. There's a whole religious war going over. If people are stupid, they don't think that one side is evil, or maybe both sides are evil. Who knows?
I just think it shouldn't be an action movie. It was horrible. It was the worst part of it.
Well, the thing is that
painful to watch.
I overall enjoyed this movie because, yes, there were scenes where, I don't know, maybe I'm just a big softie. You know, I watch this with the eyes of a child. I don't look at it as with the eyes of an adult, looking for logic, looking for stuff that's relatable to me as far as like, well, this doesn't happen. I was there. I'm in the 80s. this isn't how it was. I mean, if you're a little authentic like that, make the movie yourself. Because Hollywood's never going to do that. And and yes, you can say Stranger Things. Yeah, Stranger Things did that because they really focused on the mall because they really tried. Yes, Wonder Woman didn't get. I would say they did not give as much effort as Stranger Things did. Stranger Things went over and abroad, and because that's
integral to the story.
Yeah.
Accessory here.
But
that's the difference.
I just want to say overall, I enjoyed this movie. Yes, does it have flaws? Is it anything like Catwoman? Are you on crack?
Catwoman was so bad. At least it was consistently bad. This one had so many glaring, obvious things that it's like, oh my god! At least I knew what Catwoman was.
Well, no, you said you just said Catwoman was consistently bad, so that means this one wasn't consistently bad. So there are parts that you like then. So therefore, it's better than Catwoman.
No, you're assuming that a part that you like better makes up for a bunch of bad stuff. That's simply not true in the aggregate. Puppetine, what say you?
I was just about to say, Venkman watches with the eyes of a child. I watch with the eyes of a puppet.
And I'm like Queensryche. I like watch it through the eyes of a stranger. Go ahead, Puppetine. Sorry.
I have to say, I definitely agree with you that it wasn't really 80s. It didn't feel really 80s like they were trying to sell it as. Venkman brought up Captain Marvel before. I do not care for that movie, but it had 90s references left, right, and center, right in your face the entire time. And that is what was expected to hold the movie. This movie barely had any references, honestly, but I still was able to sit back, relax, and just enjoy it. It was very light. It wasn't something like the previous DCEU movies where it's all dark and grungy and trying to weigh you down. This is a popcorn flick. Sit back, enjoy yourself. And I don't mind that. And you know that I don't mind that.
Sure. Well, let me ask you guys some final questions before we get to our final thoughts. First question for both you guys, pretty simply. Explain why you think this movie is better or worse than the first movie. Don't all talk at once.
I was going to let the puppet go first.
Okay. I think that one of the aspects I actually liked was you brought up earlier before when Steve came back. Diana got to show him the new world, like in the previous movie, how he pretty much showed Diana, this is the world, left, right. It really went on. You felt it was connected to the first one, but it was still its own movie. You could sit there and enjoy it. Obviously, seeing the first one would help, but I think Wonder Woman 1984 just I liked it more than the first movie.
Okay, so
I definitely enjoyed myself more.
Okay, that's fair enough. Well, what about you, RDV? Do you think it was better or worse than the first one, and if so, why?
Well, I'd say this movie does suffer from sequelitis.
Really?
People have when the first one came out, we had never seen a Wonder Woman movie before. We've seen the Linda Carter one. We saw a failed NBC pilot with Adrienne, whatever Pilecki, whatever her name is, or Padalecki. So when this came out, people criticized the first film, but there were also people said wow, this is like they raised the bar. Wonder Woman was basically hailed as being the best comic book movie, especially because they looked at Captain Marvel perfect example because everybody's praising Captain Marvel is such a great movie, and then there's other people who are like, oh no, it's it's a horrible movie, and people are the bigger one of that. But I was like, Wonder Woman's over there, and that's how you do a movie. That if you want to do a comic book, it was so close. I mean, I guess it would not say close to the comic book. I'd say if it had that comic book feel to it. It had everything you wanted. It had romance, action, just it had World War. My only complaint with the first one was it wasn't World War II. But apart from that, this one this felt like we're gonna, do like a Strangers thing. We're gonna. The thing is that at the last minute, like, we don't have enough money for have all these songs in here.
No excuse.
Yeah. One, we don't know. As far as I don't know why they. I love to see. I would love to see the reason why they didn't put
0.0.
Excuse me, sir. I'm talking.
It is Bateman's turn, Rob.
No, yes, as many flaws as this had, it's not as good as it's not gonna be as good as the first movie. But to say it's like Catwoman, it's like basically you might as well just shove my face in cat piss and just say Captain Marvel is the best movie ever. Because I don't agree with that, sir, and I am slightly offended that you think this is like it's just worse than Catwoman.
I said Catwoman level bad.
Catwoman was nothing like the character whatsoever, none at all.
Yeah,
this is actually close to the character. Gal Gadot, whether you love or hate her, pulls off the role. I mean, maybe Gina Carano could do it better, or someone else could do it. The fact, and you bring up the complaint about the fact that the guys are short. That's all action movies now. All the actors, as far as the guys, they're all short. They're 5'6", 5'7". The women are taller. That's just the way they're casting. If they cast other people who are taller, good. I mean, you see it everywhere. You even see it in the
point is they're visually showing that women tower over men, and men are.
The thing is, the thing is, though, you're looking for a political trope in that.
Not looking for it.
You're looking for it. No, because obviously you notice the point of the because you're looking for it. I'm not looking for that.
Present on screen.
I look to see if a movie's enjoyable. I go back and I watch 80s stuff, and then yes, there's always been identity politics, feminism, all that stuff in every single show. Even back in the 60s, 70s.
I didn't even mention that tonight. I just mentioned you look taller than the guys. I don't know why.
No, you just said you're powering over the guys. You're saying that the guys are basically are
obvious aspect of the way they chose to film it.
You're saying offline, all the guys are bad. The women are great. Kind of. So I'm just saying, if you're openly looking for SJW tropes, that's all you're gonna see, and you're gonna hit everything in a watch in Hollywood. So at that point, you might as well just not watch anything because you are just looking for something negative, and you're always gonna find a negative result because it's always been there and it's always going to be there. Yeah, there are some movies that are openly like, hey, I'm my Supergirl. Hey, I'm Alex. Did you know I'm gay? Yes, they shove it down your throat. That's propaganda. There are subtle things in every single movie. And like I said, I watch it through the eyes of a child. As far as maybe I'm being naive, but I choose not to look for everything negative in a film. Yes, there are some films I generally do feel that are bad. Captain Marvel, yes, for the propaganda, and that I'll say that only why because that's all it was. There was no real story. She wasn't even Captain Marvel. It was just Brie Larson just ranting and raving about guys. Here, she's actually up, and Gal Gadot's character, she's an inspiring character in this. I liked it now. People are gonna bring up in the movie. There's a little black girl that she saved at the mall. Well, that's because they're catering to black people. No, it could have been an Asian person, and people would complain. It could have been a white person, and people would complain. It doesn't make a difference what character is. People identify what they want to see, and what they see, they judge on that, and they said everyone's always gonna have their own opinions. Now, I'm not saying, Rob, I'm not saying you cannot hate it. You basically are not allowed to hate it. You can do what you want. And as you said before in filming, you can like a movie if you want to like a movie, but I'll never say a movie is that you should never watch this. I mean, Catwoman, I've seen parts of it. Yes, is that bad? But there are people who enjoy it. The movies or comic books are made to...
It's true. There are people who like it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
When it comes to comic book movies, though, you got to realize I'm a comic book fan. Pixels, I know, and there's always Palpatine, so Zanglitine, Marania. We're watching this stuff. Even in the MCU, people praise it. Oh, they're such great movies. But they're not comic book movies, though. They're just, all they are is they take the name and the face and they change everything. So they're new stories. Now,
as we close up here with our final thoughts, I want to turn that into some of the comments that are going on that LK's bringing up. And one of them I think is pretty interesting because I'm not familiar with Patty Jenkins, the director on this film, or what she's done or her politics. But the bottom line is you bring up a real good point, RDB, and that's this. And it's something we've talked about too with other movies that got delayed this year, specifically No Time to Die, or as I like to think of it, No Time to Sell. I think Wonder Woman, recently when we had talked about what we thought it was going to do and open, I thought it would bomb, and not because the movie sucks or it's good, because how much a movie makes is not in no way, and to me, 100% related to its quality. I think that's absurd to think that. I think it was one of the last big budget movies filmed that, with COVID and everything going on, we've talked about how the movie industry seems to be changing and streaming is taking over, or at least making a dent and all that. That I mentioned that No Time to Die would be the type of movie that I think does not want to tarnish their image in their mind by selling out for 800 billion or whatever to whatever, even though they're trying to shop around the entire MGM franchise now. And I think when LK says there too that he doesn't think that she'll direct a third one, because he's right. I did hear about that. She got a bonus for saying if the film made $1 billion, you get this. It's in those contracts. The way films are made today in Hollywood, you have all these PC metrics, whether we want to argue about it or not. I'm simply talking in terms of business here, that they have to do all that. They brought in a specific writer to make it have certain female agendas in No Time to Die. I do not know about Wonder Woman if that was the case or not. Don't really care. That being said, I don't think it was going to make 300 million, 400 million, or in this case 800 to or more, because of how much was expected of this one based off the first one. They always want the sequel to do more. So to me, I thought it was going to bomb. Doesn't mean it's a failure of a movie. Business-wise, I don't think you can argue anything other than yes. That being said, we'll see what happens as it goes on here. But my final thoughts is that I agree with you. It comes across more as a popcorn, maybe comic bookish type film. I think if they went 100% cheese on this and didn't bother with all the stupid stuff and made it more Catwoman-y, kind of goofy, silly, like you said, G-rated, a kid-friendly, accessible, I think that could be more inspirational and more positive. If they didn't, I think they should have went the entire extreme and went the R way and went, where they've got, weird stuff going on, possible relationships and this and that, and have some adult themes in there. I don't like it when a movie tries to be PG in today's world, where they try to toe both lines, put all this stuff together, and try to be equivalent to all the audience groups and interests out there. A movie typically fails when it does that. The smart ones are the ones that pick an audience out, make it for that, and try not to be offensive to the other ones here. So, again, I think we all agree I'm the minority here. I thought the movie was really bad. I didn't think there was anything very good about it. I don't think she's a good actress. I thought the 80s stuff was horrible. That being said, it was too long. I understand people like it and they enjoy it. That's cool. That's why we talk about things on here. And I assume there'll be a third one too. But going forward, I'm not going to say I'm mad or angry at the film. It triggered me in some way, like Catwoman did, some people or other movies do. But overall, I mean, you guys obviously liked it and enjoyed it too. But for me, last thoughts are, glad I watched it. Won't watch it again. We'll see what happens when the third one comes out there too. But let's go around the horn. RDV, final thoughts on this movie, why people should see it or not see it, what you expect from it in the future.
First of all, you're not the minority. Well, you're not the minority here. It's the puppet. He's the only puppet here.
He's special.
I'm the token puppet guy.
He felt your emotion there.
What's your other hand doing, Puppetine?
He's watching Wonder Woman.
Right here.
Final thoughts. Like I said, I watch movies and people are like, well, other people think are bad films. And then I say people watch movies and they're bad films to me. We all like what we like, but I think a lot of people, I hate social media because so many people are like, oh, I hate this movie. Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. Like, and I don't think social media has ever had really an honest opinion on there. Maybe like 5% of the people who like or dislike things actually are honest. I think so many people are just like especially kids. We know how kids are raised now. Everybody's raised with social media, so. If it's a click. If you don't like this, you're the outcast, and we want to be the outcast. But yeah, there are movies that generally do suck. Yes,
Yeah.
2016 was one of them that really hurt me.
Yeah, and much like Cyberpunk came out, pushed out with a lot of bugs. That's a pretty boring game.
They patched it though.
Yeah, they're patching it and all that. But the point is for 20, 30 years now, and I think games are like the movie industry where people still pay money for it and all that too. So everyone can bitch and complain about how patchy and buggy things are and how they're promised one thing and don't get another. Companies are still making their bottom line. I think this movie, you know, you're starting to see a lot more director's cuts. You're starting to see a lot more, well, this and that. And I'm going, I can see where they probably go back and reshoot this movie or re-edit it a little bit, put out a director's cut or something based off the feedback they're getting. Because that's what PC companies sort of kind of do, if they even bother doing it at all. And at least with Cyberpunk, they're allegedly trying to do that, make it more stable. But yeah, with a long movie like this, you got some meat you can chop off and maybe make it a little different. Puppetine, final thoughts.
Well, I'm going to address a couple things here first. Here. Sorry, moving things with his hand is harder than you'd think. On my phone right here, Maranya said that I was watching the real Wonder Woman, Linda Carter. She actually does make a cameo in this movie, playing the woman who originally wore the golden armor that she wears at the end of the movie, which is kind of random, but I'm going to pass on talking
That's a good
about
fact,
that.
right? I didn't realize that.
Astoria is her name. She was the one that stayed behind to allow the rest of the Themyscirians, the women to leave, to flee to Themysciria, the island. And she has all they found was the armor. They never found her. So they have her at a post-credit scene, and they said that Astoria, the one who's like they thought perished, actually is Linda Carter.
Yeah,
and she's in the classic blue cloak and everything, like she did in the series. You see her wearing that.
Wow,
it was a nice dress. But yes, the real Wonder Woman was there.
And she does. Oh yeah, what's cool is that though. You brought it up, Puppetine. Is that she even pulls off some features of strength too? When she
a beam falls and she catches it and pushes it back up. How'd you do that? Oh, it's just part of my culture.
No, she said like just working out. It's just using its own motion against it. Just redirecting it.
Where was I? Then on final thoughts, I actually have been texting Professor Pixel right here. He said that he did not expect to like the movie at all, but was pleasantly surprised. I have to, that I go into everything expecting to like it, but I can see why he would have been skeptical, and I'm glad he liked it too, because I enjoyed myself. I know you didn't, Rob, but we know you're not the biggest comic book movie fan,
and that's not a knock. We always joke about that too. RDV and I cover some extreme movies on the side, so our tastes are pretty eclectic here.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and but for my final thoughts, I thought this movie was very enjoyable. It's not something to go into expecting it to be. What's that thing they call on the internet? Oh, a meme where they have that guy that has a poster on the wall and has little lines connecting everything. It's not that kind of movie. You just want to sit back, relax, enjoy yourself.
Sir, we just saw a hand. Are you being controlled? Being forced to say all this?
This is the only hand you see. Oh, wait, 1 second. Gail, can you fix my glasses?
Movie's taking over him or something. Maybe they're going to merge.
Thanks, honey.
Oh, it's Gail's hand. That's what it is.
That's Gail's hand. Exactly.
Oh, wow.
You see more of her here than you ever do on Englandine side of things.
Well, look, I'll close with this. As we say, thanks for everybody in chat watching too, and getting the word out in the Extreme Movie Show too. One thing definitely about this film, and we don't try to really bash stuff, where we're feeling really mad or pissy or something's boring. We like to point out things that we enjoy and like, and hopefully find an audience for it. Definitely the 80s are something that we base things on. We've branched off a little bit in TV and some different shows. You've seen a lot of other content coming on too, which is great. But definitely about Wonder Woman, I think we can all agree on that it's a movie that, because of what's been going on with COVID and what's been going on around Christmas time, interesting time for it to come out. Obviously, there's a lot of fans pro and positive about it. It's generating hype and debate, which a lot of films don't seem to get much of, or if they do, it doesn't seem to last very long about it. So it's nice to be able to spend, maybe an hour or so just kind of talking about it and kind of being basically spoiler free on. I mean, we kind of gave away some stuff, but nothing you probably already didn't know if you're a fan or if you watch some of the trailers. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. There's definitely some positives to see it. And if you're like me and your taste don't cater towards it. I probably only went level 4 or 5 on this as far as ripping. I could have went really hard.
There's only one scene we didn't really talk about, and that was when she becomes the cheetah. But just quickly, I'll say on that, I liked it. I thought it was well done. I thought the fight scene was great.
Weird a little bit.
Well, remember, it's like
I feel like they could have executed it better.
Yeah, but I will not say it's as bad as watching the live action Lion King.
Well, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening as always. Stay extreme. Have a good night, everybody. Take care.
Bye. Bye.